Hi, I'm Carrie from Bramble by Carrie. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. From the book How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. So the plan in today's video is to use the things you can see here and turn them into a lovely journal, a lovely Christmas journal. Just to note, the gift bag itself is the depth of it is 10 centimetres, the height of it is 25 centimetres, and it is 20 centimetres wide. A lot of gift bags can vary in size and shape, so just bear that in mind. I have made, as well as this journal, I have made some smaller ones using different segments of the gift bag. So I will show you those at the end. So in this video, we're just going to be making the cover. In this picture, there's also tissue paper, there's wrapping paper, there's some wrapping ribbon, there's also some tags from the same range. But in this video, we're just going to be making the cover, and then later on there will be another video showing you how I've used the other stuff inside the journal. Hi, so this is the bag that I'm going to be using today. Here you can just see that I'm taking it apart. Because these Cath Kidston bags are quite old, the glue on here is just coming apart and disintegrating, so it's dead easy to deconstruct them. If you are having problems taking your bag apart, what you could do is, if you've got a hairdryer or a heat gun, is just run it really carefully over the seams in the bag, and this can help melt the glue, and then that might make it easier to take it apart. But just be really careful if you are using a heat tool, because they can get really hot. Now I'm just undoing the handles on the bag. I am going to put these to one side, and I am going to try and come up with a way of using them later on. So I'm just trying to get it all cleared out and flattened. So because of the size of the gift bag that I'm using, it's quite hard to get it all in screen to explain what I'm doing. So instead I've come up with a smaller version, and I can try and hopefully show you in better detail what the next step is. We're going to get a bit technical. I'll try and explain it as best I can. So what I've done here is I've come up with a little plan of what a deconstructed gift bag could look like. It might vary depending on where they've put the join in the bag, but the couple that I've deconstructed so far go along these lines. It may look really complicated, but it's not as bad as it seems. So all the orange lines on here are the folds that you would get on the original gift bag, and then I've highlighted the blue area is the size of the area that you'd need for the journal cover, and then the red lines are where you would cut. So you want the front cover and the back cover to be the same width and the same height. Ideally you'd get the front cover without the holes from the handles and as little fold marks as you can. With matte gift bags, you might be able to give it an iron once you've unfolded it to get rid of some of the fold lines. But with the bag that I was using, it was quite plasticky and quite hard, and if you tried to iron it, I'm sure it would just start to melt and burn. So I've found this area here, which is going to be the front cover, and then I've selected this area to be the spine. There are some folds on it, but eventually I'm probably going to be covering the spine, so you won't get to see these fold lines in the end. And then this is the back cover here, and again there are quite a few fold lines, but I'm going to come up with a way of covering them up. If I was making this for myself, these fold lines on the back wouldn't bother me. You could just add some lace to cover it up. Now the problem with the gift bag that I'm using is that it is really plasticky, and so getting things to stick, even PVA glue, is quite hard. So in this video I'm going to be using some double-sided tape to stick down what I'm going to be using to cover up the fold lines. So the blue is the area that I've marked, and then also on here I've come up with the cut lines and the notches that you want in for the flaps that are going to bend around. And this is to make sure you don't get too much bulk around in the corners. because that can affect the way that the folds look in the end product, and also stops bulk from gathering near the spine folds. You want to keep them clear of material because that makes it a lot smoother when opening clothes, and you don't want anything to get in the way of that smooth hinge effect. So that's it basically. You can, as I said, you can, if you do end up with holes in the bags, you can use them to your advantage. I've made some really pretty additions using those holes. So we'll go on to the next step. With things like this, sometimes it is a good idea to, first of all, do a template, and then you're not cutting into your final project until you're really sure about where you want to make the cuts. This is the template that I came up with, and it's based on the gift bag that I deconstructed. You want to take your time doing this. You need to have a good ruler that's going to be long enough to make the lines you need. It's also really helpful to have a right angle ruler, so then you can check your right angles are correct. This means that you'll get nice corners. And you need to go back between the gift bag and your template and just double check your measurements. Yeah, and just take your time. It might be that you need to do a couple of templates before you get it right. Front cover and the back cover were 15.5 centimetres wide and 20 centimetres high. So I didn't actually measure the flaps going around. I just wanted to ensure that I had enough so that it would be easy to glue down. So now that you've got your template, you need to then put the template onto the gift bag that you're using. Again, just double checking that it all seems to match up and that the folds are in the right place. When I'm dealing with large sheets of paper like this, as soon as I can, I want to get rid of some of the excess, just to make it easier to handle. So what I'm doing here is I've just kind of roughly put in some lines for where I can cut off the excess. So then you want to put the template onto the gift bag and start working your way around, drawing, marking where you need to cut on the gift bag. I'm using sort of like a black writing pen, just because it's easier to see. A pencil might not show up very well on the shiny paper. Now I'm cutting it out. I'm using scissors for this because all of these edges are going to be folded and you're not going to see them in the end product, so they don't have to be exact. Now I've got my scoreboard out, and I'm going to use a ruler just to help me get the right angles correct to draw some fold lines on the gift bag. It's really hard to explain which way around you want to do it, but I always remember Gail Gostinelli saying that you want to make valleys into mountains. So generally that means you want the right side facing you, and then you bend it round. Now, if you haven't got a large scoreboard, what you could do is on the reverse, if you've got a ruler and a biro pen, if you draw the lines in and sort of go over them a couple of times with the biro, this can sort of create a score line, and that can make it cleaner when you're trying to fold it over. Makes it easier when you're trying to fold it over. Once you've finished with the score lines, then you want to fold over all the edges and just get a really crisp, clean line on the folds. I'm using my bone folder, but you could use the end of your scissors or any other tool that you like to use for this. It's just about getting the fold lines really crisp. Now it's time to deconstruct some cereal boxes. Depending on the size of the journal you're going to make, you might need a couple of these cereal boxes. For the journal I'm making now, I needed 2 cereal boxes. Getting rid of all the excess flaps that you don't need. I'm just trying to get to the nice flat cardboard as much as I can. So this is the cardboard that I've got from the cereal boxes. We're going to use this to reinforce the cover. We're going to make separate pieces, one for the back cover and one for the front cover. And then we're going to make a spine, but we're going to double up the spine. So there'll be 2 layers of the cereal box for the spine. And you'll see why in a little bit. When I'm measuring what size I want for these pieces, I am leaving a couple of millimetres each side. And this helps with the folds. Around the edges, it helps with the folds coming over clean. And at the spine side, it leaves it clear, so then you'll still get the lovely open and close motion that isn't impeded. We will be reinforcing the spine hinge parts later on, you'll see. So the height of these pieces, they're all going to be the same height, 19.5 centimetres. And the front cover and the back cover are going to be the same size. Yeah, so as I've pointed out here, you need 2 of them. One for the back cover and one for the front cover. I like to keep labelling all the pieces when I'm doing this, just so I can keep track of them. Here I'm just sort of laying the pieces onto the gift bag and sort of trying out the hinge. You'll be able to tell if it's too big when you're folding it over. It'll feel a bit stiff. You don't want that. You want it to be nice and easy, nice and smooth. So I'm just measuring the spine now, and again leaving the millimetres either side. It starts off at 5 centimetres wide, and then I make the reinforcement pieces 4.5 centimetres. We will be reinforcing the spine with some material later on. So now I've got the measurements for the spine. I'm going to cut out 2 pieces the right size, and these are going to be glued together and then glued directly onto the spine. You're best having these slightly smaller than too big. So I've decided just to glue the 2 shiny sides together, leaving the 2 sort of matte sides on the outside. This gives you more porous surface on the outside, so then when you glue in the gift bag onto it, you're giving it the best chance possible. It's best if you can. Normally it's best to avoid putting shiny material onto shiny material. So to glue these in, you don't have to do loads of glue. You just want enough so that it sort of stays down enough for when you're gluing the flaps around. Trying to get an equal amount of space around the edge to try and get it in the middle of the area. I really enjoy using the roller. But you can use a bone folder, or you can also use an old gift card as well for doing this. Now the spine's going in. This is the double layer of cardboard. Quite often I do use my fingers when I'm using PVAs, when I'm making journal covers, because I like to feel how much PVA there is. If you use your fingers, you can sort of judge where you need more. I'm just getting my clips out because I know that I'm going to be sticking the folds down around the edges. This just gives you a helping hand while it dries. You could use the PVA for these. I'm just using the art glitter glue just because it sort of dries slightly quicker while I'm filming. Getting to a satisfying bit now. You can see that the cover's taking shape. It does seem repetitive, but we're going to make 2 more pieces to fit over the back pages and the front pages. So this is going to be sort of the lining for the front cover and the back cover. By doing it this way, you get some really nice folds around the edges. Now, instead of measuring this exactly, I'm kind of going by eye. So I'm getting a straight edge on the cereal box, and I'm just going in and marking out where I want it to be. I quite like it having it slightly in from the edge, just so that you can see a bit of the pattern popping out from underneath. It also leaves the liner less vulnerable to getting knocked and coming away from the cover. So again, getting a nice straight edge, and then I'm measuring how high and the width. Again, I'm using the matte side to connect to the gift bag. Just giving it the best chance I can of sticking well. So the paper that I'm using is actually from a tablecloth, a paper tablecloth that I've got, and it's got a bit of weight to it, so it kind of folds nicely. I'm not measuring how big the flaps are. I'm just going by eye and deciding that I've got enough, just ensuring I've got enough to fold over. Now I'm using PVA, and it's very similar to the last step. I'm going to glue it down. Giving it a quick roll. Now, before I actually glue down the corners, what I'm doing is I'm going around and making the folds. This just means that you don't have to stop in between putting the glue down. Yeah, just making sure that the paper goes right to the corner of the cereal box card. I really enjoy doing this, just folding and sticking paper. It definitely reminds me of backing books when I was younger for school. Now, there's no right way or wrong way to do this. You just glue in and fold in. In this journal, for some reason, I wanted to glue down the long edges first and then the short edges. You're not going to see it when it's actually finally glued in there. Doing it this way means that all the edges have got a really good covering of the paper. You don't get a really crisp right angle at the corners. It does naturally it goes rounded slightly, which doesn't bother me. I quite like this. I quite like that. I'm just turning it over and getting some going over the folds. There, so you've got the two, one for the back and one for the front. Going back to the cover. I've got my little clips to clip it down once I've glued. Now, on these sections, because you've got quite a lot of matte area on the back and front covers, it will glue down, but you kind of have to be patient with it. It will want to come up, but if you get some clips on it and just, you know, be patient and get some time. I'm just ensuring that I'm not covering the hinge at all. I did the same with the other side. Now I'm being impatient, and I don't think I left it to dry for too long. But anyway, I'm getting on, and we're going to get a strip of material to cover the spine. This reinforces the hinges, the hinge action on the spines. Doing the classic junk journal thing of ripping the material. I'm doing this I'm not measuring this with a ruler, I'm just going in by eye. I do decide that I want it a bit narrower, so again, I tear it down. I will be keeping the little bit that I've torn off. Now, I don't tear the top bit because it'll be going against the grain. So although it does look a bit sharp, the edge, it's fine. Now, when I'm gluing the material onto the spine, at first I just do the middle bit. So I just put the glue on the spine itself. You don't want to be putting it on any glue in the area between the spine and the front and back cover. You want to keep that clear. So I do the middle bit, make sure I've got the material the right side up. I think this is non-directional, this material actually, so. And then what I do is I go in and put some glue on the back page, again avoiding the spacing between the spine and the back cover, and then I sort of squash it down. When you make it like this, it means that in the end you're going to get a journal that lays really nicely flat. And you want to let it dry open like this. You don't want to close it. Although I do give it a try. But it does kind of distort it a little bit. If you start trying to open and close it at this point, it is best if you can just leave it flat and let it dry. Now I went in and cut off the excess of the material at the top and bottom. Now I'm showing you here, I came up with this sort of like bow design. I was determined to use the ribbon that I had left over, and I just couldn't come up with a way of gluing it onto the cover. I wanted to use it to cover up the folds in the back. I'm just pointing out the folds on the back cover and the spine. It was weird, this ribbon, because it looks like it should be straight, but it isn't actually. It had been cut at it was slightly wonky. So I think it would have been really hard to, even using the double-sided tape, I think it would have been hard to sort of attach it straight onto the cover itself. So what I've come up with is, again, I've done another little template using a hole punch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to weave the ribbon in and out of these holes, and it gives a really cute look in the end. It took me a little bit to work out where I wanted to put the holes, and by luck, I don't think I planned it, the Christmas section came out exactly where, so you could see it. I've left enough paper on each side so that I can bend it round and then put a staple in. So that's how I'm attaching the ribbon to the paper. Well, it's like cardboard paper. It's very light cardboard. I tried to sew in the ribbon, but then that would just split it in two when I tried to use a sewing machine on it. On the other journal that I showed you here, I had actually put some stitching on either side of this, but on this I chose not to on this journal. So I'm just bending it over on itself, and I'm just trying to make sure that you can't see, once it's folded over, you can't see it from the front. You can't see the folded over section from the front. You'll see in a sec, the way that I positioned the holes, and again, it wasn't really intentional, but it does just, you can see the Happy Christmas really well. Just push it to the left, pull it to the left and say Happy Christmas. So I've got this, I think it's almost like a mini attacher. These staples are 10mm. They're quite small staples. I'm trying to get the ribbon quite tight. And then staple in. And now I do this quite a lot. If I'm using staples and I'm wanting them to lay quite flat, I'll just get my little hammer out and give them a quick hammer just to flatten them out. Get as flat as possible. And I'm going in with the art glitter glue. Just putting that around the fold. You don't have to do anything as overcomplicated as this, but I was just really struggling to get the ribbon to glue onto the cover, and I challenged myself to find a use for this ribbon. Yeah, I do find the really cheap double-sided tape often doesn't work for things like this. Now comes the hard bit of trying to get the backing off the double-sided tape. So this is what it looks like when I've put the ribbon cross on the front of the journal and the back of the journal. So these are the journal covers that I've done so far. I've actually got more that I need to finish off. I will show you them in a video coming up. So this is the one that I completed in the video. You can see I managed to do, I don't know what you'd call these, like the ribbon lines. Remind me of when a present's got a ribbon around it. You get that cross pattern. I've done them on the front and on the back. I've actually put the signatures in on this journal. I won't show too much of them because I want to show them in the next video. And I've done a cross binding for the signatures. I was going to cover up this with lace, but looking at it now, I'm quite happy with the way that it looks. A fold that you can see there, but that doesn't bother me. So there we go. There's the journal that we made in the video. This is another journal that I made with the same bags. I've had a load of these bags that I've been saving in my Christmas crafting stash for ages, and I've just not used them. So I was like determined. I'm trying to de-stash a lot of stuff, and I was determined to use them. So I was trying to think of a clever way of using them. And to me, it just made perfect sense to use them for journal covers. But the problem was that they are very plasticky, so getting things to stick on really tricky. So yes, that's a smaller sort of travel size journal. That's very cute. And then these really small ones. These are very cute. These are for teeny tiny miniature journals. I'll probably still try and get 2 signatures in, but it'll be in miniature size. Now, when I was making these, this one ended up with the holes here and here, but I didn't want to waste the material, so I thought I'll find a way of covering up. So what I've done actually is I've used a split pin with a little label, and then you can have it where you want. I thought that'd be really cute. And then you can write something on there, maybe decorate it. I thought that was a cute way of covering the holes and using up the scrap from the gift bags. So there's that one. Now this one I haven't finished putting it together, but I wanted to show you this as well. So this ended up having the holes in, and what I've done is I've added extra holes, and then I've just woven some ribbon through it that goes with the design, and then stuck them down just with some PVA there, and they'll be incorporated into the flaps once they get glued down. And I put one on the back as well. So as always, I hope you had fun watching this. I needed to split this into 2 videos because of the footage is far too long, but also in the meantime my craft room is in a bit of a state, and I need to kind of feel like I need to reset all of it, and then enjoy spending some time creating the pockets and the things to go in these journals, and then hopefully come back to you with the video showing you what I've managed to do. I'll be using the tissue paper, the wrapping paper, that is also again quite tricky to use because that's quite shiny, and all the other bits and pieces at the start of the video. So hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you very soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.